Guess who's back? Guess who's back? Michelle is here. Michelle is here on October 21st, 2025. Can you believe it? It's 2025. And I can remember starting this video series or whatever it is in 2023. As a matter of fact, it was around October 2022 when a series of events happened, which sort of nudged me on to do these type of videos. And these videos are done for documentation purposes only. You can watch them, and I'm talking about just individual random people, but I know that my videos are being watched. I know that my videos are being monitored. Now, is that paranoid? You decide. I wanted to come back today, though, and talk about something that I attempted to kind of bring it up on a particular social media platform, but of course it was blocked, or it was banned, it was whatever they do to suppress information that's going out, to shadow ban people, to block people. And it's so sad because all those efforts are fruitful, because I told you we are forming energy, and energy can penetrate through space and time, and that's literally, figuratively, and metaphorically. But of course, we are just not there yet. When I say we are not there yet, the majority of the humanity doesn't want to hear it. If it's not material, if it's not materialism, the majority of humanity does not want to be bothered, and that's clear and effective by the results that we have. In the last couple of videos, I think I talked about the consequences. We're living in the consequences of things, which is called cause and effect. We're living in the consequences, results, effects of what we cultivated over a series of time. And for the majority of people, what's happening now in your present reality is so crucial, because you're setting this all up. You're setting up the consequences. You're setting up the results here and now. Here and now, you're setting those things up. But what I attempted to, I've been saying this a while, but again, this is being ignored. I talked, I have been attempting to wake people up. That's all I have been attempting to do. But it's just so sad that only certain people refuse to block stuff out. Oh no, I don't want to be bothered. They don't want to be bothered. They want to focus on materialism only. They don't want to understand the spiritual component, the energy component of who we are, what we are, and why we are. That is what's the primary reason why we exist. We don't exist just so that we're born, we get married, we have children, we buy materialism, and keep repeating that, because so many billions of people are doing that. They're just repeating the same cycle of life events, of life experiences, not understanding that there is a spiritual component to who we are, what we are, and why we are, and our responsibilities and accountabilities to that. We've caused it to get so warped out of balance that now we've encased ourselves in a form of criminal negative energy, and we're encased in it. So there is, unless you can understand the power of energy, who we are, what we are, and why we are, the majority of the planet is just going to keep spinning in that encasement of criminal negative energy until the end of time, whatever that means. And during those series of events, so many things are going to be happening right before our eyes. And again, people do not want to understand the genuine reality and the genuine science of who we are, what we are, and why we are. We had certain philosophers, scientists all back in the day that were focusing on certain things about the scientific factors of who we are, what we are, and why we are, more so with the planet. But each time they fell short because they were focusing on the materialism and not focusing on the fine energy of it all. It's energy, it's energy, it's energy. It's sounds and tones. Sounds and tones is energy. We're part of that. We're part of that energy. But again, most people don't want to hear it. They don't want to be bothered. Okay, I mean, it's a lot of factors of it. It is too late. So this is what I'm sensing is going to happen. So many of us, billions of us, again, we fall into these certain patterns and behaviors which are predictive. We're predictive. That's why artificial intelligence was able to come in and just virtually blow our minds, because we don't see the fact that we're predictive. Anybody looking in can figure out that, okay, these people are in a trance. Yes, they are indoctrinated, most definitely, and they're just moving in the same kind of direction but not necessarily moving, but more so spinning, and they do this lifetime after lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. We're energy, ladies and gentlemen. These physical bodies are just a vessel, as people say, a container, but deep within we're energy, and so we have to give our consciousness something to work with. But we ignore everything because we think we're so powerful, we think we're so wonderful, and we're talking materialistically. And a lot of people, especially narcissistic, sociopaths, psychopaths, in most cases, deep within they hate themselves. And if they could, they would kill themselves. They would take themselves out. But no, they push that down and think, okay, let me go out and project how powerful I am. Let me project, how this and that and the other. And they're destroying themselves from within. What I'm learning by how I'm being taught is, again, as an individual, okay, as a material individual, we have accountabilities and responsibilities. Okay, we're to evolve our consciousness. But so many of us, like I said, dismiss that because we think we're better than that. We're better than our consciousness. We're better than energy. All because I have a boat, I have a car, I have houses, I have money, I have this and that and the other. This materialism. Even if you have a lot of women, a lot of men, it's still materialism. Based. But as an individual, as a course, a material course individual, again, I'm responsible for evolving my consciousness. Now, what does that mean? Well, all you have to do is listen to my videos. I have thousands of them that explains it in plain, simple language. But again, those videos are for the future. They're for my future family members who are, adolescents, toddlers, whatever they are, whatever stages they are in their development. And they're going to pick up on that, as well as what other people are doing to help humanity. That's our responsibility. Listen to what I'm going to say right now. I don't want to repeat. Now, what does that mean? I said this a while ago, that as an individual, we become and we pass. We become by being born, we pass by dying. That's that stage that most of us are familiar with. And I said to you, a lot of people think, okay, when I die, that's it. Anything but true. And if you don't snap out of it, all you're going to do is keep spinning and believing that and wasting precious time. Wasting precious time. Even though, there's this illusion with time. Everybody says, oh, I got time. And a lot of people think, oh, that's somebody else's problem. They causing all this stuff. And they believe that's somebody else's problem. Oh boy. So again, we become, we pass, as I said. And I also said what happens is we pass the baton. That's just a figure of speech, meaning we pass what we've learned in these bodies via our consciousness, and we pass that on to our next personalities, who are going to be completely different. They're not going to have any idea that I ever existed. They're going to rely on what is stored in my consciousness. And I point back here because, that's where the pineal gland is. And that's just a habit. But so my lifetime as Michelle will eventually pass away. My material physicalness, this body will eventually pass away, dissolve the body part. It's just like a shirt. In other words, I'm going to take this shirt off and it's going to be passed on to someone. And the person that is being passed on to, the next personality, is going to be feeding from what I was able to learn during this lifetime. What I was able to cultivate, contemplate, the cause and effect of it all. So a lot of people believe that, you can fool your consciousness, but you cannot. And that's going to be the tragedy for a lot of people when they recognize that they cannot fool their consciousness. But they think they're clever. They think they're so much more intelligent than they are. They claim they're experts. And that expert part is the part that rubs me the wrong way, because these so-called experts are interfering with other people who are attempting to, get out of this circle of lies and deception and manipulation. These so-called experts are in the way. Okay, some, again, I said this a while ago, some of them think they're experts because they had this one year of good luck, where they were making millions here or there or everywhere. Okay, but that may have happened 10 years ago, 20 years ago, but they still think they're experts. And that's not true at all. Okay, think about what I just said there. Okay, I'll come back to that at a later date. But again, you pass that baton on to another completely fresh and clean new personality, again, that has no idea who you were, who I was. All they know is what I've stored in my consciousness, in my memories, in my storage bank, whatever you want to call it. The energy, that energy of it. Energy is why we exist. Creational energy is why we exist. Okay, and that's where our scientists need to be focusing on, not just the materialism of it all. That's probably why Einstein got stuck. But let the so-called experts and scientists deal with that. We are fine. We are energy, a fineness of energy. And anybody that understands physics and understands, quantum, all of that stuff is, they're focused so much on the materialism of it all, what it can do, how fast it can go, how quickly they can give them answers and blah, blah, blah. We're exploring in the wrong areas, and it's going to come back and haunt us. And I mean, it is. It's going to come back and haunt us and eventually destroy many. So I attempted to put out a post the other day about replacement, people rambling about being replaced, rambling about this and rambling about that, because they don't understand the process of hereditary properties. And they don't understand carriers, what the carriers' responsibilities are. Carriers do what? They carry stuff. All you got to do is break it down. And again, no one has to know that you're cultivating these things within yourself, trying to figure it out on your own. I talked about the black paint test. I said, get a can of black paint, add any color, but just add white, and tell me when it will eventually become white. It will not. It wipes it out. It changes it. So certain races of people, just like the Neanderthals, the Pecan Man, they all went extinct, and that was due to their inabilities to capture who they were, what they were, and why they were, and they became complacent. Okay, they made themselves vulnerable because some people just don't want to move outside of their comfort zones. They don't want to move outside and consider what else could be going on in this world, instead of it always being about them, being focused on themselves. So eventually, I'm just saying, certain races of people will just go extinct, and that has nothing to do with anything but science. It has nothing to do but reality. It's scientific. It's reality. And that relates to human beings too. Okay? Think about animals that went extinct. Why did they go extinct? Okay? So instead of making it so personal, taking everything so personal, detach your personal connection to who you are, what you are, and why you are. Detach that for a minute and just kind of look at things in a simple form and say, okay, if I were this, if I were a piece of energy, let's just play and have fun too. You might as well. In most cases, the damage has been done. Okay, why not try to recoup as much as you can? Because what's going to happen? Yeah, those races of people may go extinct, but guess what? Guess what happens? Their consciousness continues in another form. Okay, it goes into another form of a human being. Okay, think about that. Don't take things so personal. Yes, a certain races of people are going to go extinct. Okay, mostly those that are vulnerable to the climate. Has nothing to do with anything but because they are vulnerable to the climate destruction, to the rays of the sun. But carriers are the ones that are going to suffer a lot of impact as well in their consciousness because they don't recognize their responsibilities as carriers, and how to take responsibility for their behaviors and actions. Just having babies and babies and babies and babies and babies, okay, causing overpopulation of human beings and their materialism. Okay, what goes up must come down. Okay, so a lot of our parts of our planet are going to sink into the ground because of the high levels of materialism, humans, equipments, toys, whatever. So I attempted to put that on, like I said, on one of the social media platforms, and nobody wants to know the truth, but eventually you will be faced with the truth. And a lot of people believe when you pass, in the process. So when you become, you become. When you pass, you pass. That's based on our, mentality of what we believe we know what it means. But I'm being taught that you're going to have to deal with what you've caused. So even though you appear dead to me, you appear dead to others, your consciousness is still there. Even after you pass. In some cases, your consciousness, the energy of your consciousness is still there because you have to resolve things. You're not going to be able to go in. Let's put it this way. You have to see it in a scientific and not make it personalized, but understand that just because this physical body here is placed in the ground, it doesn't mean the consciousness is not still there somewhere in an energy form. So, and that has nothing to do with supernatural. It has nothing to do with tarot cards, witchcraft. It's energy. Okay, you need to strip it down to energy. Some people say naked energy. Just strip it down. Look at it from an individual piece of energy. Just and try to play with that. Have fun with that. Give your consciousness something to work with so that you can be impulsed properly. A lot of us, again, like I said, we're encased in criminal negative energy, but some of us can neutralize ourselves out of that into neutral positive energy. It's work. In other words, you need to take away from what you believe and put it into what you know. Okay. So I just wanted to say that real quick. I'm so busy with things, and things are going exactly as I caused them to be. In other words, my causes earlier in my life, thankfully, have resulted in where I am right now as I stand here, as I sit here. Thankfully, I'm so thankful for the foundation of modeling from my parents, the good, the bad, and the ugly. modeling from the community, the good, the bad, the ugly. Modeling from life experiences, the good, the bad, the ugly. It is what brought it. It is what has cultivated me to be who I am, what I am, and why I am right here, regardless of how I look, regardless of anything materialistic about me. Okay, and the same thing can happen to you, where I have permanent joy, permanent happiness, and I know that there's more to me than meets the eye. I know that. But, until people choose to wake up, all you're going to do is you're going to continue to be reliving these same experiences, spinning. But in the meantime, you're going to be spinning on a destructive, catastrophic planet that may not be able to support you. Okay? And also think about your children, think about your descendants. Think about those things that you are participating in unconsciously in most cases. In other words, think about what you're doing. Why would you bring children into a planet that you know may not even survive? Why would you do that? You need to really be serious about that question there. Okay, why would I bring children into and then listening to people causing their own replacement? They're causing their own replacement by saying we need to increase the birth of, and they want to increase the birth of, let's just be honest, they want to increase the birth of light complexion people. White people is what they call themselves now. These deranged, underdeveloped consciousness of people who are sadly, in the spotlight all over the place, are causing their own replacement. They're causing their own replacement, and eventually they're going to wipe out a certain skin color, I guess, but it's going to be cultivated into another skin color. But again, the consciousness part of it can relive on in those other colors of people. Okay, the effects do not end because there's always a cause. So, and then there's always consequences. So you just have to be willing to take yourself there and see if you can take yourself away from the materialism of it all. Oh yeah, I need to look at the time. Because like I said, I'm really busy. I'm doing it. I'm doing what I said I would do. Okay, has it turned out exactly as I said it would? No. But hey, that's the adventure part of it, And if something didn't work out the way I hoped it would, there was a reason for that. But it was made clear to me. So I'm not upset with myself. I'm not down on myself. It was just a miscalculation. Sometimes you have miscalculations of what you visualize to happen, or what you hope to happen, or what you meditate on, whatever you're doing to materialize your life. A lot of people are just unconscious though. They're doing things unconsciously. They don't realize what they've cultivated, and because they're focusing on one thing, they're focusing on just a part of a beautiful canvas of what things could be. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop right now. I just want to come on through, document, keep it going. I mean, I'm so enthusiastic. Sometimes I have to calm myself down. You know what I mean? Because I know I'm navigating as best I can through this. Because remember I said, imagine yourself as one person circled around with millions, maybe billions of people, and you're attempting to get through that. It's difficult. You're going to be injured sometimes. You're going to feel pain. You're going to be tired, exhausted, all of that, trying just to get through it. That's that bottleneck of criminal negative energy. Okay, that's what we're encased in. A lot of people can't see it, but it's there, just like any form of energy. Physics ought to know that. Okay, so, and then the same thing with artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is a form of energy. And energy responds to the energy of the earth. It does not respond to man, material man. Not at all. So I'm going to go ahead and stop right now. And remember, universal love was always inclusive. We divided it and turned it into a commodity. Peace and love. Be safe. Protect yourself. Protect your community. But most importantly, protect your consciousness. Talk to you soon.